The Spellweaver is your ranged magic user creating and consuming elements to power up attacks, heal allies, and even summon ethereal help. The Spellweaver features a very unique mechanic that makes the class both fun to play, but also challenging at first. This video is the third in my beginner series covering the 6 starting classes of Gloomhaven Digital and their level 1 abilities. So we'll briefly do an overview of the Spellweaver before jumping into the cards available at level 1, and then we'll cover the early items to equip your Spellweaver with. So let's get started. The Spellweaver is what I like to call a squishy character with only 6 starting health, meaning it will be very important to avoid taking damage whenever possible. The Spellweaver more than makes up for this though with her ranged multi-target abilities that when used well can help to clear whole rooms in just a couple of turns. The Spellweaver has the smallest hand size at only 8 and most of her cards have powerful loss abilities. However, the Spellweaver comes with a unique mechanic on one card in particular that allows her to recover all of her lost cards. This means that you can generally be more liberal with your lost abilities early on and deal tons of damage. The Spellweaver is one of my favorite classes because of this recover ability, but it does come with the challenge of making sure you pay attention to how many cards you have left so that you don't accidentally burn out before using the recovery ability. Alright. With that overview in mind, let's jump over to the cards now. First on the list is Fire Orbs. The top is an attack 3, range 3, target 3, gain 1 XP for every enemy targeted, create fire, and loss. This ability is a mainstay for the Spellweaver as with her recovery ability it can be used twice, and when powered up properly through a power potion to add +1 attack to each attack, and done with advantage through eagle-eye goggles, this attack will absolutely devastate your enemies. If the attack doesn't outright kill them, they should be weak enough for the rest of your party to take them out easily. The bottom of the card is a move 3, and overall you'll see the Spellweaver has decent movement, but like this card, many of them are tied to top loss actions, so the more losses you use, the less mobility you will have. The initiative isn't great at 67 on this card, which is another theme with the starting cards here. The Spellweaver's initiatives aren't great for going early. There are a few, but most of these aren't going to be able to guarantee that you'll go before enemies, meaning it's best to stay behind allies most of the time. Okay, next up is Impaling Eruption. This is our other great multi-target ability, though this one can be more challenging to use. The top has an attack 3, range 4, where we target all enemies on the path to the primary target, and gain 1 XP for each enemy targeted, and create Earth for a loss. This path does not have to be a straight line, but even still you need enemies to be adjacent to each other to make the best of this attack. In a smaller party size of just 2, it may be hard to get this with there being less enemies, but with 3 or 4 mercs, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. Again, this attack should be paired with advantage to improve its damage potential. Also, this one can actually hit 4 enemies if you are adjacent to the first, so in that regard it could be stronger than Fire Orbs. The bottom is a strong move 4, and the initiative is not terrible for going late at 70. Next we have Reviving Ether. This is our recovery card. The top will allow us to recover all of our lost cards and create dark, but this ability when used can never be recovered, which is important to note because we do get another smaller recovery ability later on. This card must never leave your hand or be lost to negate damage. This is the Spellweaver's bread and butter. You have to use careful accounting so that you can use this card at the last possible moment to get the most use out of it. Using it too early or waiting too long and losing it will see the Spellweaver exhausted before you are halfway through a scenario. The bottom of the card is a nice move 4 with jump, which can be used early on to gain some positioning, and the initiative is great for going late at 80. Freezing Nova is our next card. The top of this one is an attack 2 targeting all adjacent enemies and immobilizing them. If we can consume ice, we can add +1 to each attack. Now, this one sounds good in theory, but personally I never use it because it requires a Spellweaver to be in a very dangerous situation. She is a squishy ranged character and should not be in melee. So that makes this ability more of a reactionary one where somehow you get surrounded, so you use this attack to immobilize so you can go to safety. The bottom of the card is a heal 4 with range 4, create light, and loss. Early on, this is a strong heal ability and can be used in a pinch or when close to the end of a scenario, but we do have some other heal cards that are not losses. The initiative is 21, which can help us go fast, but it's no guarantee when fighting fast monsters. Now we have Mana Bolt. The top is an attack 2 with range 3, but we can consume any one element to add +1 attack and gain 1 XP. This is a great, reliable attack to use after using something like Fire Orbs or Impaling Eruption, as you can use the created element from those to power up this attack. Plus, it isn't a loss. The bottom is a heal 3 at range 1, which is a little harder to use on allies because you'd have to be adjacent to them, but you can also use this on yourself. The initiative here is a really nice low 7, making this the one starting card that can beat just about every monster in initiative. Then we have Frost Armor. The top is exactly the same as Mana Bolt top and is useful for all the same reasons. The bottom is a great oh crap card where you can suffer no damage from the next 2 sources of damage, gaining an XP point each time, and create ice for a loss. Essentially, you can safely tank 2 hits with this card active, which does come in handy, though it does only work for 2 sources of damage, so if you jump into 4 or 5 enemies, you're still gonna die. With an initiative of 20, you should be able to get this off before most monsters go, but not all. Next is Flame Strike. The top is an attack 3 with range 2, and we can consume fire to add wound to the attack. This is another reliable non-loss attack, though the range limits its usefulness somewhat. If we have the fire to use, then adding wound will deal damage over time and greatly improve the damage output of the attack. The bottom is another attack ability with an attack 2 with range 2. This can be great for some burst damage if you are already within range 2 of an enemy. The initiative on this one is a 36, which is generally not good for anything. The last level 1 card is Ride the Wind. The top is a loot 1 and the bottom is a move 8 with jump, create wind, and loss. Basically, this is just a utility card, which is usually the first one I'll trade out for something else, but if you need some coin or just want to jump all the way across the map, this is your card. The initiative is great for going late at 83. Moving over into the situational X cards now, first we have Crackling Air. The top of this one is an active ability that allows us to add +1 attack to our next 4 attacks, and if we consume wind during the attack, we'll gain +2 instead. Now, this can be really good for powering up Fire Orbs or Impaling Eruption, but remember that this gets activated on each individual attack, meaning our multi-attacks will burn through this bonus really quick. The bottom is a move 3 and add Retaliate 2 if we have fire to consume. The initiative is another kinda okay one at 25, but still a little too slow to go early. Next we have Hardened Spikes, which has a top with Retaliate 2 affecting us and all adjacent allies for the round, gain 2 XP, and loss. If we can use Earth, we get another Retaliate out of it for a total of 3. So this is of course very situational, but in the right scenario you could deal a lot of direct damage from the Retaliates with this, but generally you won't get a great setup for this move. The bottom is a move 3 and we can consume ice to give ourselves shield 2 for the round. This one goes back to the fact that Spellweaver is a ranged character and finding yourself in a situation where it would make sense to shield up should be unlikely. The initiative is a 26, which again isn't great for beating a lot of enemies generally. Finally, for the X cards we have Aid from the Ether. The top of this one is a very useful heal 3 with range 3. The bottom is our first summon for a loss with Summon Mystic Ally, which has 2 HP, 2 move, and attack 3 with range 2. We also get 2 XP when we use the bottom as well. This is the only X card I usually take. The ally can be an awesome source of extra damage if you can manage to keep it safe. Ranged summons can be very powerful in Gloomhaven, and this one in particular is great for its high attack power at 3. The other great part about this summons is that if it dies before you use Reviving Ether to get your lost cards back, you'll get this summon ability back too. The initiative is really good for going late at 91. Now for the starting items. First up, the Eagle Eye Goggles are essential for getting the most out of the Spellweaver's multi-target attacks. Next, the Stamina Potion will be great for extending our playtime a little bit, After that, the invisibility cloak is great for allowing us to jump into a dangerous position to get enemies within range of our fire orbs or impaling eruption, and then go invisible so we can't be targeted. Then if we go late on the next turn, we can hit them again before moving back to safety. For our next item, I'd say the piercing bow is great to keep our ranged attacks relevant when facing shielded foes. And finally, for our boots, I'd go with the boots of striding for the extra move after we've lost our bigger moves. The Spellweaver is a great class to play, even if a little more complex to use than the other starting classes. Once you learn how to use her effectively, you'll be clearing rooms of enemies in no time and dealing more overall damage than the other classes. Remember to like the video now if you found it interesting, and feel free to ask any questions or just discuss Gloomhaven in the comments. If you missed my previous starter guide video, check it out right here. As always, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and keep on gaming.